Hello, hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have Elizabeth Venable with me. Did I get it right this time?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Elizabeth is actually in two ways connected to me, but we have never met in person. So we both live in the Phoenix, Arizona metro area. Are you in Gilbert or Chandler?
I am in North Phoenix.
North Phoenix. Okay. So we live in the same metro area, but probably close
Pretty
to an hour.
distant. Yeah.
Yeah, away. And then we have a connection because we were both formerly, I think, VIPKID teachers with the ESL company in based out of mainland China that is more or less wrapping up I guess that last stage that it has been in. I've been teaching with them for three
Following
and a
the
half
Chinese
years.
government. Yeah.
Yes. So the VIPKID is not closing, but our chapter with them is closing. They have decided that they wanted to focus on, I don't know how to put this delicately. I try not to avoid a lot, or I tried to avoid controversy on my show,
Mhm.
but
Global growth, I think.
yeah, more or less, they are hoping to open markets to a more international audience, but they
Mhm.
don't want foreign teachers, people from the US, Canada, Australia, UK, teaching the mainland Chinese students. They
Right.
are allowing international teachers who live in mainland China to continue teaching. But other
Mhm.
than that, they have basically shut down. I know that the just VIPKID itself and even just the ESL companies were over $1 billion industry, but
Mhm.
it was a bigger thing than that. It was like the tutoring industry in general in mainland China is gone. So like $120 billion industry is, I think within about 3 months, it's just shut down. So they're
Right.
switching a lot of these students to after school free programs, I believe.
That's what they said in the brief from the Ministry of Education, I believe it was. Yeah.
Yes. So we have these two things in common, but Elizabeth is actually also a grant writer. She runs a nonprofit. She's been working from home for, I don't know, how long have you been working from home? Why don't you tell us more about you?
Well, I've been working from home since ever since I started my own nonprofit and I needed to find flexible income. And before that, I was a classroom teacher and I held a variety of development nonprofit positions wherein I was not working from home. But as soon as I started my nonprofit part time, I had to find a way to make income that didn't impede on my schedule.
Okay.
And one of the best ways to not have work impede on your schedule is to work at 4 a.m. like on
Yeah.
VIPKID. And then I also really enjoy writing grants. I have a background in public administration, as well as teaching and in small nonprofits. And I really enjoy grant writing because I can do it anytime that I feel really in the mood for it. I'm very efficient with it. And it allows me to be very creative in terms of making up programs into existence.
Wow.
And yeah, I find that to be really exciting. It's sort of like venture capital, but it's more based on mission. So,
So about how do you divide your time right now? You've mentioned a few things. Is the
mhm.
nonprofit separate from the grant writing?
Oh yeah, the nonprofit's totally separate from the grant writing. Right now, I'm writing for a nonprofit that's called Sansar Maya. They're in Nepal. They are a great agency. They serve women and children in a variety of impoverished locations in Nepal. And they have a real high quality STEAM program, and they have like health checkups for the kids and the women that are doing literacy programs, things like that. So I work for them um, only um, 30 hours a month, but the wage is competitive and I can do it at any point in time that I want. So that adds into it. And then I do write grants for my own nonprofit. I'm looking for more grant work than I've been doing because the online ESL in China is slowing down. And but it's a great time to transition because there are so many employers looking for people right now, and wages are maybe going up a little bit.
Are you finding that's true for grant writers as well? Because I know that some industries seem to be kind of stale and others seem to be booming, and some people are leaving because the wages aren't good enough.
I think for nonprofit development in any time of crisis, there's always a demand. There's generally a demand throughout the years for nonprofit development, but even during catastrophes, there's a need for reaching out to foundations or reaching out to donors and gathering those revenues so you can continue doing your nonprofit. And I think that the wages are pretty competitive because it's a difficult field. I feel like my wage has gone up, but that may be just my own feeling of empowerment in negotiation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm used to not necessarily working for my full value. And I think many of us don't. If we were to look at inflation and what the wages should be, I believe many of us don't work for a wage that is complementary to our skills. And for someone like me, that I have 2 master's degrees, I should be able to have more negotiating power than I demonstrated, but it may be a gender thing. I think that sometimes people are more or less assertive in making contracts or arrangements, and I've sort of gone from sort of giving my services away to actually, charging something. So,
Yeah. I can see that. Especially when you're working for nonprofits and organization or a cause that you believe strongly in, you
yes,
almost probably feel like you're giving part of yourself, even
yes.
donating part of your services or time. But
Oh,
you
100%.
could
And
be
you do
paid.
it for the
Yeah.
joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we could all live off of joy and pay rent with joy.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. And that's why I have these multiple sources of revenue, because not every project is going to be as desirable as every other project. And so I like to keep things going, diversify, make sure that I'm interested in the things that I'm doing, and that's almost more than being compensated to me.
Mhm. So it's a mix of giving of yourself and volunteering and having enough to live off of.
Sure, yeah, because I know my time is very discounted, highly discounted, for these agencies, and they're aware of it too. Um, but I'm willing to work for what to me feels like a relatively competitive wage, but what for a grant writer is not necessarily, the penultimate wage. I don't work on commission.
Okay.
That
Is it
lowers the amount of money you get.
is it hourly then? How does it work?
No, if you work on commission, you don't get an hourly wage. You just do it as a percentage of the grant. No, I feel this makes the grants uncompetitive.
I don't know a whole lot about grants. You might have to educate me a little bit.
Oh, sure. Well, grants are like applications to companies and nonprofits, and a wide variety of nonprofits actually exist that will take grant applications, and you tell stories about your nonprofit and what your nonprofit is doing and what you would like to do, and you lay out a budget for how you're going to do it, and then you tell a story about your budget. So it's just about writing inventing a program based on what your desires are as a nonprofit and writing it into existence, and then contacting these foundations with very fancy letters, and according to their specifications, right? So some want 250 characters. I'm like, yes.
Oh,
And
wow. It's like a text.
yes, and you have to fit like a program in it.
Oh my goodness.
Yes,
So, and
it's
other ones are more
challenging.
flowery and like essay
Yes,
like.
I'm working on one for the Coca-Cola Foundation right now, and they're so, I mean, they've got to put up hoops, I'm sure, to get through all the applicants they get. But we're a good match for them, which is the only reason why I'm doing it. But one of the questions, they give you up to 6,400 words.
Whoa.
Up to, which doesn't mean you have to use them all. But all the other ones are recommended like 2,000 words, and there's like 8 sections. And I calculated that out, and that is about 50 to 60 pages double spaced for one corporate foundation grant. Yeah.
So are these like almost elaborate like college applications? I mean, I do know some things about grant writing, but I guess I don't know how technical they end up being. Like, how much do you have to put into the financial budget part versus the storytelling part?
Well, hopefully you're working with somebody that can estimate what costs are. If you can get a narrative about we will need 15 buckets, and we will need 20 trees, and we will need 2 supervisors at 50% time, you braid a story with your budget. And it's good to learn. That's probably a very challenging part of it for most people, but you've got to think practically and in terms of real numbers. And the closer you get to real numbers in your imaginary project, the more likely it is to go into existence. What was the other half of your question?
Oh yeah. How much of your time is spent and like actually formatting like the budgety parts and the financial parts?
Not very much time, to be honest, because you get it from, generally you get the budgets from partially from the executive directors, or also from the accountants. If it's a more professional nonprofit, they may have a budget that they provide for you. If you like their organizational budget, they will probably have that for you. If they are a small nonprofit, it's probably easier to do it.
Okay. So is your nonprofit a small nonprofit?
Yes. Well, it's a mid-sized nonprofit now because we're going to get over 50K. So over $50,000, you have to actually report your revenues and expenditures. So we're a burgeoning mid-sized organization.
And did you already tell us what your nonprofit is focused or who it's helping?
Oh, my nonprofit does leadership development for people experiencing homelessness. And we have people meet with legislators. We go to city council. We did about 10,000 masks to that population. And the thing that makes us different is the participation of the people who are directly impacted and conveying their concerns, as opposed to simply the concerns of service providers who, while generally really well intentioned, are also there to get funding or protect their own interests, or not necessarily give less popular opinions on programming that should exist, or pressure too hard.
Okay. So they might have their own agenda that might not necessarily serve that population.
Well, they serve the population, but they don't necessarily involve the population in the decision making.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And which is really interesting because most helping professions, you are working with people a lot of times from your own background, like maybe it's your own cultural background or your own gender or sexuality background, you're a peer. But when it comes to homelessness services, there's a professional group of people that offer services to a very diverse array of people, some of which they don't necessarily even admire or consider beliefs logical. But I believe in public testimony, in the ability of individuals to make a difference by sharing their own stories and things like that. And we're really unique for Phoenix. There's nobody else like us in Phoenix.
Okay, so you're allowing these people to help advocate for themselves with their own stories and experiences.
We give them the tools, right?
Awesome.
And we take them places and give them the tools and set up meetings and talk to the media and things like that. Do demonstrations, art.
Wow. I want to hear how you got into that. Like how you left the teaching profession to start this nonprofit, and that's how you ended up in this journey of working from home. Can you go back and talk a little bit about how that all started, and what were you teaching before?
I was teaching biology and earth science, as well as in the last school I was at, I taught chemistry, physics, earth science, and nature of science to middle grade students. That was a little difficult because I was a biologist and I didn't get to teach biology.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think I could handle biology, but you put me in a room with chemistry and physics and I'm out.
I felt bad about the physics because I had a general idea of the laws of physics, but can I name them perfectly? No. And that's just sad.
That was the first.
Oh, sorry.
That was the first class that totally kicked my butt. And then I married a guy who majored in that.
Oh, did it kick your behind in college?
Yes.
Yes, that happened to me as well. I got my first C in college for chemistry for majors, and I hadn't had chemistry in high school. So I show up, I'm like, what's a mole?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we were trying to do circuits, and thankfully my lab partner like covered for me a lot. I think helped me get through. I think I helped him with the writing, and he helped to like actually understand what was happening, because otherwise I wouldn't have made it through.
Well, that sounds like a good lab partnership. Sounds like
was
there
a good
wasn't
friend.
any dead weight on that team. So
I went to his wedding. Like we became friends through the experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long ago was that now?
I taught from 2015 to 2018. I sort of left that situation where I was too stressed out, to be honest.
Well, yeah, if you were out of your water and out of your element there, that would be hard.
Oh yeah, and I also can't do classroom management very well. I can do one-on-one with VIPKID. That's very easy, just like constant positive reinforcement. A little bit of discipline, but not too much because they won't pay attention.
How many kids did you have in those classrooms?
About 30.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
So you started the nonprofit, or you started teaching for VIPKID, or what came first?
I started the nonprofit in January of 2018, and we were dormant for a little while, but then I got very decisive about what kind of project I actually wanted to do, and that helped me figure out my course. But VIPKID came when I believe it was in about June of 2018, something like that. And my friend who had been to China told me that it was a very popular program.
Yep.
So that I should try it out because I was doing DoorDash, which is sort of sad because I needed the flexible time,
Yep.
And I drove my vehicle into the ground doing DoorDash, but VIPKID, all you have to do is make sure you have a really well-functioning computer and creativity.
I started in January of 2018, so just maybe 6 months before you or so. But you branched out into even more companies than I did. I ended up with 2 companies. They do say it's a good idea to diversify in case something happens,
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
what's happened more recently is just all of them shut down at the same time. But what's
Yeah.
going on with you? You've taught for a few different companies. You don't have to name them all, just go ahead and talk about it in general.
Well, I've taught for children. There are different platforms for children and adults typically. And I've taught both for children and adults online. Generally I enjoy doing the maybe age 5 to age 18 the most.
Okay.
Because the company I have right now has a curriculum. It's structured. And it is more serious than VIPKID, like serious. And not that it's more or less effective, it's just a different way of teaching. And I think that the best way to do the teaching is to find a company that matches your style. Yeah, and what the expectations of the teachers are matches what you want to do. Because the problem I found with the adult programs was I would always have to make my own curriculum, and that was so labor intensive for the amount of money that I was charging,
I haven't gotten into the things where you end up making your own. If I were to, I would do just conversational and do themes. Because I have taught for another company that also does adults and kids, and it had just a tiny bit of curriculum and a lot of time for free talk and expansion and extension and customization, and I really thrived off of that. And so I could probably just take it and run with it on the fly because I've had 3 years of experience doing that. But I've heard someone saying the other day, oh, these, some families are trying to ask the teachers, will you teach us, tutor us privately? And there's a lot of kind of back and forth. Like some people are like, some people are nervous that they might get those families in trouble. Others are like, oh, absolutely. They're not concerned. I'm not concerned. Getting paid is actually one of the problems, I think, for some of these families, because I think they're trying to make it more difficult for money to leave that country.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about the industry was about, as you said, I think earlier, I don't know if it was on the film, private investment in and stock valuation for these companies was so high. These companies were so high.
Right.
And that's sort of part of the reason why the Chinese government said they were shutting them down, which I believe when normally people say what they believe, so
it's just they were getting too rich.
I think so. I think they'll do things like it's very interesting. Like a major Chinese celebrity got banned off the internet, and they just scrubbed the internet of the Chinese celebrity because she was getting too popular. And you're like, how does that happen? I guess they control the internet, but
and it's tricky. Like I almost feel a little bit nervous right now talking about it because that there's the internet doesn't go away. Like things actually do. I'm still currently working technically for one of the companies, and the other one, I think there's that hope that it'll continue to expand. Well, one of the companies that teaches adults technically should continue to be able to teach adults, but we're just not sure if they're going to survive because
it might not be as lucrative.
Well, the children's part was so big compared to the adult part. And so VIPKID is trying to march into that adult sector. And a lot of parents whose children are no longer able to take those classes and the parents might try to take it so their kids can watch along or maybe follow along, or maybe they'll pop their kid in instead of themselves. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're also trying to expand into other markets and other countries. But the problem with that is that China has had more money than a lot of these other countries. And so even as VIPKID itself is talking about branching out into these other countries, they're automatically docking everyone's pay. I think everyone will start at $3 an hour less than we've been, or $3 for 25 minutes. So it'd actually be like $6 an hour less.
Yeah, my base pay was with that particular company was about 8 plus incentives per class, and that's at least $2 different.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the money because it was always based on a 25-minute class, and then there was these extra bonuses. But on average, for the longest time, I was making at least $20 an hour.
Yeah,
and more with bonuses.
19,
and I was doing a lot of what they call like demos or trials for the 2 different companies, and there's a lot of bonuses if you sign up people. So sometimes I'm making more. I don't normally talk about how much I make, but it was enough.
Were you doing referrals too?
I only did a couple. That was just the ones that happened more naturally, like a friend of a friend kind of thing.
Oh, that's much better. I had a little bit of help from a former VIPKID teacher to get into the whole industry. She mentioned me a little bit more. Normally she just read my feedback and said, oh, it doesn't sound too bad. Okay, I'll try again on my mock class.
Oh yeah, no, I had a lady who mentored me through that process. She actually had a group that grew pretty big, and she didn't require you to have already been hired into the group before you could join it, so that you could like learn and then apply. Yeah. And so I chose to use her. We ended up being roommates at one of the conferences.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So a neat lady. I actually asked if I could put her down as a reference today for one of the job applications I was filling out. And she's like, yes, of course. So that's wonderful. She became a real friend. Actually, the people that did sign up officially, one of them was my doula when I had my second kid.
Okay, yeah.
She became a VIPKID teacher. And another one was a friend from another parent at the school that our kids all went to before. And she was also my book club. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been kind of hard to see, the rise and the fall of something that was so fun. But I don't know about you, but reclaiming some of my sleep has also been, a goal. So I knew that I couldn't live that lifestyle forever. Here in Arizona, we are 15 hours behind China time, Beijing time.
There's no daylight savings though.
Right. We don't ever have to change the clocks, and neither does China. So we always were constant when everyone else was having to adjust their schedule. But how did that work out for you? Like the adjustment to waking up? How early did you start? I was starting like at 2.
I would
2, 3.
I would get up at 3 and start at 3:30.
Okay.
And do it all the way up until it cut off.
Yeah. And that cutoff even changed. It used to be that we could teach until in our time zone, 7 a.m., which would have been like 10 a.m. on the East Coast. But then they cut that off. They, again, the government made a choice, and I don't necessarily disagree with the choice. It just affected my bottom line. Right. So they decided that the kids were staying up too late doing their tutoring. And it's true. Some of these kids were falling asleep literally as they were trying to like practice English. They'd be like eating soup and falling asleep into it,
Yeah.
And so the government decided that they wanted them to shut down an hour earlier so they could get to bed like by 9 o'clock China time. Which would have been 6 a.m. our time. And so, yeah, I usually taught from about 2 to 5, or from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. or 2 a.m. to 7 a.m., depending on whether or not they allowed it.
I tried doing 2 a.m. For a while, and just because I wanted more bookings in the beginning. And I can't do it. But right now, with my unnamed company, I really can't say, because otherwise we'll get eliminated.
Oh yeah, don't do that then. Safety first. Oh, how did it work out for you with waking up so early in the morning?
So I'm still waking up with my with my current company. I'm
Okay.
still waking up, and they have it starting at our 3 a.m. and going to our 6 a.m. only, and they have some in the evenings on weekends.
Okay.
Our evenings on weekends. So,
Right.
and
So,
it's difficult because you do get really tired,
mhm.
and I can only do it a couple of days. To be honest, I go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I stop and I do Thursday.
Okay.
For
So
some
Thursday,
reason, I
Friday.
just got into Thursday,
So Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Sunday.
and Sunday. So like a 4-day weekend, more or less, you're working.
Yes, yes.
And
And then
then
the
are
rest
you
of the time, I work on my grants and I work on Fund for Empowerment. Yeah.
talking with my sister earlier today, and she was asking me about, what am I going to do now that this is coming to an end? Because it has been. I was doing it full time. And the podcast and things, that's all extra right now.
Yeah.
She's like, what do you want to be? And I'm like, I just want to be like valued, for my time and expertise and education and, abilities and
Yeah.
skills, more than anything.
Yeah.
Do you feel like teaching ESL has helped you grow?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's helped me grow in a wide variety of ways. I mean, obviously, the way that I think about presenting on camera has changed.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I think of even like holding myself, I'm like, oh, my hair, or I'm like, oh, I should wear red lipstick because you can see my lips more, just little tips like that, make you think differently about how the screen works, or you get used to your prompts, or your TPR, and it makes you more sophisticated. But I think
Mm-hmm.
also I really enjoyed developing the relationships with the kids.
Yeah.
And I think one-on-one, it's a lot easier to develop those relationships than in a regular classroom setting. And I think that was one of the most beneficial things to me as someone who doesn't have children. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, did you find yourself ever having opportunity to be on camera or with other people while everyone was shutting down for the pandemic? Or did you feel like, I guess I don't know how do you feel like that
yeah, I
helped
was
meet a
always
social
on
need in
Zoom
some
calls.
way?
Yeah, I
What
was
was that?
always on Zoom calls.
Okay.
And
How
so,
often?
oh, how often am I on Zoom calls? Oh, today I think I was on, so this is my fourth one. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah. So is that necessary for like meeting with the budget people and the finance people and
It
the
is, yes. And it's also necessary for finding about public policy and techniques for conducting programs and things like that. I often work while I'm in meetings because you can um, you can listen in on like informational meetings and still get some work done, especially if you're on a flexible schedule writing. Um, Sometimes I'm not perfect at multitasking, but I do feel like the flow of information is conducive to my writing, and it makes me a better person in the nonprofit world. So I try to keep myself, unfortunately, on Zoom a lot.
okay. Well, can you like I guess I do have a hard time with multitasking because I can get distracted and then not hear the other thing. But are you almost like taking notes and turning that into like notes for your writing?
No, I sort of if it's a meeting that I'm supposed to be responsible for something, then I won't work on something else. But if, you know, do you ever listen to music when you're working?
Certain kinds.
Certain kinds.
Yeah.
Does it ever have lyrics?
I have to be careful to not have too many lyrics just because the way my brain works, like if I can hear words.
Uh,
So it just depends on if it's familiar to me or not. If it was familiar
yes,
music, then I can
yes.
then I can concentrate. But if it's unfamiliar, it might distract me more.
Well, I'm a big lover of news radio.
Hmm.
And I like I don't know. I just like complexity in the things I'm listening to. Otherwise, I get bored.
Hmm.
And so I don't find it too distracting to listen to things because, especially if it's an informational webinar, I don't, it's there to improve me.
Hmm.
I get from it what I get from it. I'm not paying for it. I'm generally receiving content.
Right.
Um, but if I'm working on something specific and I know that I have to be a participant in the meeting, then I can't multitask at all and it's
No.
inappropriate to do so.
Right.
So
Right. I guess I can just see like different kinds of tasks, can have different kinds of distractions. So yeah, there's
oh
certain times
yeah.
like if I needed to be like listening and asking questions,
Yes.
I wouldn't be able to have something talk radio in the background. But if
No,
I
I
was
mean the
like,
Zoom call is like
mhm,
talk radio in the background.
oh, that's the talk radio for you.
Yes, it's like
Interesting.
listening to talk radio for me while I work is I just listen to the information.
What kind of Zoom meetings are they?
Well, one was like um from a foundation that we get funded by, and it was about police accountability and how to get police accountability because that's really one of the frames of what people are interested in, how we're doing. Because I don't know if you're familiar, but the Justice Department recently opened an investigation of the Phoenix Police Department over its treatment of 5 different populations, and one of those populations is homeless.
Mm,
And they are only doing homeless for the first time, and it's only because of our organization.
wow.
And yeah, so it's like it's really interesting. And so I have to know techniques and tactics and get new ideas from these foundations or from these other activists or advocates that are spreading their tactics to us all through these webinars. So
Okay. So they're like almost like a town hall type meeting.
they are almost like a town hall type meeting, yeah. But sometimes the town hall component occurs in the chat.
Okay. Oh,
You can
interesting.
have like 2 or 3 presenters that are like, I forget what it's called when you put like a pin it to different parts of the screen, the speakers, so that only certain speakers can be visible.
Yeah.
Um, then the chat becomes the area where people can give feedback and
Hmm.
relate to one another. And actually, that makes it a lot less pressure. People can also turn on their cameras, but I don't always feel the need or want to turn on my camera.
All
And
right.
actually, it's less sustainable. So,
I wanted to ask you earlier about, I was asking, if teaching ESL has helped you grow.
mhm.
The presentation type skills that you need to learn, or yeah, for teaching online, like you said TPR earlier, and people might not know that that means total
Sure.
physical response or something like that. And
Mhm.
it's more of the talking with your hands, using your hands to elicit a response. And so there's a lot
Yeah.
of kind of like motions that you will make with your hands in order to prompt that student to give you something. There's a lot of um, I, it's not how I was raised or trained to speak with my kids. Lots of like the good job kind of things. We don't really
Oh,
say that in our
sure. Yeah.
family.
The instructional
you know,
TPR, the
yeah,
instructional TPR versus the educational TPR.
right, right. So, but I guess for some reason, maybe these children respond well in that culture to just lots of, verbal praise and,
I think
physical
it's a little bit like Blue's
gestures.
Clues, though.
I know. Yes,
It really
it can
is.
feel a little fake at times. I, like you were saying, I have more of the personality where I'm a little muted, like I definitely
Mhm.
am, genuine and enthusiastic. Um, but I'm not like over the top smiling until my face hurts and,
Yes,
just
some
like
people
fake
really complain
that
about that.
sing song voice that you hear some people doing. I don't try to do that at least.
No.
But I have noticed parts of it leak into other parts of my life. One time I was
Yes.
trying to pick up something I bought on Facebook Marketplace. I bought a tripod and I went to go buy it from the lady. And instead of giving her money, I tried to give her a high five. I think she was expecting money, which I did give her, but I realized, oh, like we are so accustomed, for many hours in every week, of just this online thing that you forget sometimes how to act normally. So have you noticed
Yes.
any of those things leaking into your
Oh,
other?
sure. Yes, they leak all the time. I mean, I'm always TPRing everything. I listen to Dua Lipa when I'm driving sometimes. She's a pop star anyways. And I do TPR, like I'm levitating, like I just do TPR when I'm driving. I do it when I'm talking, and I
Mhm.
do good job a lot. I've noticed the
Mhm.
use of the thumb. Like the thumb is something I never did before, ever.
Yeah, it's not really part of my normal repertoire, but it has become, so I might have to kind of like scale it back a little bit. And then what about, let's see, you were telling me before we started recording that that you had a quick tip about how to wake up in the morning. Do you want to share who that is?
Oh, well, my tip, it relies upon a very reliable person. And if you have a very reliable person like my mother, they will come and help you get up in the morning. Now, that's a little bit over the top, and I feel sort of sorry for her, but it's better than me getting a TNS. So she's very dedicated to it, and it's
TNS
very
is teacher no
easy.
show in the ESL
Yeah,
world.
teacher no show. Yeah. Um, and because with most of these companies, well, for example, I'm much better about it now, but for a lot of these companies, there's a limit to the amount of teacher no shows you can get, and then that's the trigger for firing you. So,
Did you Are you sharing a household with your mother right now?
yes, 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 yes. It's a really nice house, and
Good.
the property values in Phoenix are going up ridiculously. So basically, it's a nicer house than I could ever possibly afford right now.
Mhm. How did she wake you up?
She knocks on my door and she says, will you get up? It's time for VIP
And was
or
she set an
whatever.
alarm for herself at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, but I'm generally up. Nowadays, I am up almost like 85% of the time before my final alarm goes off. I'll be getting up.
We were just talking about how easy it is, especially when you're in, a dead sleep and you're living, alone. You don't necessarily have someone else to just hit that snooze button and never even know it.
Yes,
I
yes,
lived alone for several years before I met my husband, and trying to work these overnight shifts was just brutal. I would be
yes,
setting alarm clocks all over the house, and ended up having to have a friend who would just like, if she didn't see me, if I didn't text her by a certain time of the day or in the morning or the middle of the night, whatever it was, she'd call
yeah,
me just to help me get out of bed, because, you kind of have to watch out for each other if you're both single and you don't have anyone else. Now I just set my alarm on my husband's phone as well, so that if
mhm,
my first alarm doesn't go off, or if I turn it off and I don't go turn off the one on his, it'll wake him up. I haven't had to do it as much lately, but I definitely went through a season where I think I was just dealing with something maybe medical. I was maybe weaning myself off coffee. I don't know what it was at the time, but I just went through it like a season of like just extreme fatigue. Um,
yes. I
Maybe it
I
was,
couldn't do it overnighters. I couldn't
yeah.
do it.
Sometimes
It
it's
was too
easier to just
much.
start, and then just go through the night rather than to try to take a nap.
Yes, but when you have holes, like a Swiss cheese
Hmm.
schedule, that's
Yeah.
the worst.
Right. So if you're teaching like 2 hours and then a half hour off and 2 hours, yeah,
Mhm,
I would try to
mhm.
take a nap, but I'd have to set like 7 alarms. I did hear a tip. Someone actually, it was a VIP teacher, Shannon Melbury or something like that,
Yeah, Shannon Malbury, she does the professional
workshops.
development.
She said, if you set 7 alarms on your phone, you have only really set one alarm, because it's on one device. And if that device fails you, all of them will fail you. And I was
Sure, and it
like,
sounds
good
the
point.
same too. Yeah.
Right. I actually do set different sounds. I have like a gentle one that kind of helps get me out of sleep. And then I have the really
Wow.
harsh one that'll be
Yeah.
like, sometimes the harshest ones, though, it's not good to start with that because I would just be like angry at it and just turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah. I have another alarm clock, but I'm guilty of setting the 6 alarms on my cell phone, and
Hmm.
then, you know, but it normally wakes me up, and then my mom is just a wonderful safeguard.
Hmm. My husband has been that for me because it was actually from my previous job when I worked for Mayo Clinic.
Mhm.
It wasn't even from sleeping, but I messed up a schedule one time. I agreed to come in for a 2-hour shift in order to like help them with staffing. So I
Mhm.
left on a day that they didn't need help, and I was supposed to come back on a day that they did for just 2 hours. And long story short is I changed phones over the weekend and my alarms didn't transfer,
Oh
and I
no.
got in trouble. And this was like 10 years ago. But
Yeah.
I had to have perfect attendance from there on out. And so we learned, some of the tips and tricks to like, to cover your butt essentially.
Mhm.
But actually last night, I was so lucky. I think I went to bed. I went to come upstairs to say goodnight to my kids, lay down in a
Mhm.
bed with them. I think they're all on my bed actually. And then apparently I just like zonked out because the next thing I knew, my alarm clock was going off. It was like 4:25 a.m. I need to teach in 5 minutes. And I asked my husband later, I said, I didn't even come upstairs with my phone. It was charging downstairs. Did you bring it up? And he's like, yeah, I did. And
Oh,
thankfully, I had a recurring alarm that was already set that goes off every day at 4:30 or something like that, just in case I have a class.
yeah.
And it like saved me because I
Yeah.
don't think I set that alarm. I don't think I set it. I think it was just already, there. Otherwise,
Yeah,
because
that's comforting.
yeah. So you have to kind of like, just in case you have that, mess up that you're ready to go. But yeah, I made
Yeah.
it. It was a tight one though, because then I ran up, I realized that my computer was downstairs and I couldn't find my glasses. And so I actually started teaching without my glasses on.
Oh
And
no.
my husband must have heard my alarm go off. So he came to go to the bathroom and I just kind of like muted myself and I said, I can't see. Do you see my glasses? So he kind of handed them to me through my door. Yeah. Whew.
I remember the worst thing that came of teaching in the middle of the night was I had this light in front of me. I used to have two of them, and they would glare down on me, and I would be so tired that like.
It makes you
And
want to
one
close your
kid
eyes.
told me, "Open your eyes, teacher," and I was like, "I can't." The light, you know. It was really sad. I moved to one light, and it works fine.
Lights give me headaches, and so I can't have one behind me. I have to have it bouncing off the wall. How do you motivate yourself to do the grant writing? Like it's easy for me to wake up and get to a class, but it's
Mhm.
less easy sometimes to if there's work that's just kind of general, like I should get to it. How do you get yourself up and going on that stuff?
Well, one of the things that I learned also in the past few years was that I need to honor my thinking time, because I normally spend quite a long time perseverating and thinking about things when I'm making a grant and I'm figuring out how to do things, even if it appears unproductive. And so I think for grant writing, it's important to honor that what doesn't seem like productive time, but that thinking time, and then write when the moment is. For me, I like to write when I have inspiration or I have a deadline coming up,
Mhm.
and those two things will motivate me to produce more content. But really, I think the process of doing a grant, it writers all write in different ways, I think. Some people are quite organized and get up right on time and do it all right away. But I'm really lucky. I mean, I'm really privileged in that I can write really quickly. And so I can have that thinking time, you know. Um, Part of it is just having gotten those 2 masters, you know.
It's a lot of practice writing
It is
on
a lot of
deadline.
practice with
Yeah,
writing, and then I get into it and I'm like the
right.
keyboard cat.
I did a lot of overnighters. I wrote some of my biggest research papers in less than 12 hours. Yeah.
Yes.
But I didn't always take the time to prove. So how are
Yeah.
you getting it done? Like, how can you just walk me
There's
through
an
like what a
element of
typical
copy and
project?
paste
Okay.
to it, and then you modify and you add in things. So not every time are you starting again with a brand new slate that's clean.
Okay.
You bring text that you've already written and you build on top of it. And some people go, oh, it's all cut and paste. It really isn't. You have to rearrange things. Your text is very modular, and you just yeah, you just build on it, and then certain questions, certain foundations will ask different questions than what you prepared, and you can answer those. But normally you're not having to do 60 pages and another completely different 60 pages, you know.
Okay. Got it.
You
So
might do 80% the same
bits and pieces will translate if you're writing for the same nonprofit.
if you're writing for the same nonprofit. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're working with that one in Nepal and then your own. Are they
Yeah, and
very
I've done
different?
other ones too, but right now I'm working on really finding good organizations for me. I really like Sansar Maya in Nepal, you know, and obviously I really like my organization, but sometimes I have sometimes people are too small or not ready for grants or not ready for federal grants, want big money and are not ready for it. And so I am trying to find a little bit more grant writing, like one more position, but I'm picky about it because you do have to do more work, and it's with less with more frustrations if they're all little individual nonprofits that have never gotten a grant before, and you have to make up a completely new program out of air,
Right.
you know.
Without so many people to consult or to work with or who have
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes out of your imagination essentially, you know, and then you interview people and get their information and then describe what their ideas are, but you have to always have that imagination component to it.
Who makes a good grant writer? Like you don't just go to school to be a grant writer, do you?
Well, my degrees are in my undergrad was in plant biology. Then I have a master's in dance theory. Yeah, so I did a lot of writing for that, and it made my writing much, much better. And then it really did, yeah. And then public administration, which I just doing so much activism that I was able to get a full ride to go to a prestigious school in the West Coast.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I can see that one probably lending itself the best to the grant writing.
Mhm. But the writing component is you have to understand organizations and institutions. But really, if you can find a match, if you can understand grant writing as a matching kind of almost a romantic interchange between your nonprofit and a foundation, almost like a love letter, then if you are interested in the organization and interested in the writing, I think that you don't have to have as much functional skills as long as you're really familiar with what you're writing about.
Do you have to be passionate about the thing that you're writing about, or can people write grants for things that they don't care about?
Well, I can't. That's my number one criteria is, am I writing on something that I believe in, to be honest? I don't think most people do, but grant writing, like anything else, is a job. And there will always be supply and demand, and people will not necessarily always have convictions of their own. You
Right.
know,
Right.
some people have more strongly held beliefs than others in a wide variety of ways.
Right. Right. Now, we were just talking a lot about, all these people from the ESL world who have had their jobs uprooted, I guess.
Yes.
I think I was saying it earlier. I feel not like I lost my job because I didn't do anything that was wrong to
No.
lose it. And I don't feel like I
Yeah.
gave up my job. I just feel like they took it from me, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who are in our shoes right now in the last month or 2 or 3 who have, seen the
Yes.
writing on the wall and knew that the end is
Yeah.
coming or that things are changing. Now, some people are holding on hope that, this international global school is going to just take off, but others who are maybe a little bit more realistic are going to be like, it's going to take time. And
Yes.
if
To
it
build the
happens at all,
platform. Yeah.
so something's going to have to, pay the bills in the meantime.
Mhm.
Would you say that grant writing is something that people could or should consider to go into if they have the English skills? Like, we're talking to English
If they
teachers or
have the English skills and some understanding of Excel,
mm,
if you understand how to do basically like adding and subtracting in Excel or multiplying,
mhm.
you can do a budget. It's not as hard as
Okay,
people
so just
think.
simple formulas and
Yeah, and I think it's a good skill to learn to augment whatever you're doing, especially if you are interacting with nonprofits. Because some people that are doing online ESL, for example, are classroom teachers, and there are tons of little grants for classroom teachers to get their stuff, so maybe they're not buying it out of pocket.
right. So like supplies, yeah.
Supplies, things like that, projects, things like that. That's a good way to find out on an easier scale if you are interested in it or not. But I think the biggest reason to write a grant, if and you should always have somebody that you can try first, where it's a pressure-free environment, I think, to make mistakes, you know. I was thrust into, like in 2009, I was thrust into this nonprofit that was completely falling apart. And I worked like 80 hours a week for not that much pay, for like $30,000. And 36, I remember, 36. I was the second highest paid person in the organization.
Oh wow.
Yeah, over the lawyer who was 35.
Huh.
Yeah, people do wacky things in nonprofits where they don't make money.
I guess so.
Yeah. But I think that those are good ways. Simple grants are good ways. Organizing events are good ways. You can find out if you're good at writing little corporate things. But I think the commitment to a nonprofit is probably the thing that's going to make someone a more interested grant writer. And I think you have to really be willing to think through the grants. And if you're intimately familiar with a nonprofit already, it makes it easier to do that. But I would always recommend reading a book on nonprofits, not just nonprofits, on grant writing. I recommend reading as many books on grant writing as you can possibly find for like the first few months, because they become redundant after a while, but they will help you understand a course and a trajectory and what is essential information and what's not. And I think if the skills seem too high when you're reading it, then it might not be your area. But I do believe it's, if you can handle the matching and looking in databases, I think that almost anybody can do the writing, to be honest,
Okay.
because I think that the match is the most important part.
but also grammar and punctuation and
Well, you'd be
looking
surprised. It
professional.
depends on who you're going after.
Oh,
You'd be
really?
surprised, yeah. You want them to fall in love with you more than they care about your punctuation.
I
know I'm very precise and I like to get everything perfect too. But if they're looking for one category or group of people and you are one of 5 applicants out of 100 that have come from that group of people that they want to fund, they will pick you.
Oh,
Doesn't
I see.
matter if all the periods are there.
Okay. Good to know.
It's the match. That's what they care about. Are you meeting their objectives? Are you falling within their strategies? Are you extending? Do you make them happy? Do you make them care? Things like that.
It's a whole other world for me. It sounds really interesting though, and I'm glad that you found it. Do you feel
I
like
love it. Yeah, it's really
do you
cool.
feel like picking up one more organization to write for would be enough to replace some of the income that you've lost with some of the changes in this ESL world?
Well, one or two.
Okay.
One or two, to be honest. And because my secret company hasn't totally died, I haven't totally faced the inevitable, so I sort of sit back and spectate on the VIPKID boards, and I have to keep to myself and never give a referral.
Yeah, it's actually kind of incredible she said that, because they're still hiring. Like, it's so weird.
Yes.
Like, they are, even though we can't teach for their students as of like basically next week, somehow people are still getting hired. It's I guess very optimistic.
I wonder if they're getting onto the global platform too.
Yeah, they say that'll be like a separate, I think, invitation. So
yeah, I heard that like 1% of VIPKID teachers got invited. That's crazy.
That's like 1,000 out of 100,000.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, all right, Elizabeth. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Not real accounts though anymore, because some people have left probably.
Oh yeah, a lot of people have left. That's true. A lot of people have, basically as of August, people were like, I'm done. I'm out. I got a full-time job doing something else. And so it's been a trickle. Those who are hanging on a little longer. My husband and I just watched the Titanic, so I'm having like visuals right now.
Oh no.
But yeah, it kind of feels like that.
Yeah, no, it's terrible for the connections too, and it's terrible for being so abrupt. And part of the thing I think is really frustrating is because nobody gets unemployment.
Yeah, we were all independent contractors, and so it's not like our boss laid us off. It was, we were we're on our own. Yeah. So that is hard. I've been there's an office in the city where I live, Gilbert, and I can't remember the name of it. It's not an unemployment office, it's an employment office where they're trying to help people match with jobs, and a lot of entry level agency. Yeah, no, it's not even that. I don't think it's more like helping people with their resumes and just work readiness. And there are some grants where they're trying to help connect people with skills that might be needed in order to meet the needs. Like, you could become a nail technician or a welder or something like that. And whenever I go in and I'm like kind of looking around, I'm like, it just doesn't feel like it's right for me. Like, I don't see anything here that fits. But I think I was working on applications today, so something will come through, and I've got some ideas that I can do in the meantime. I have some skill sets that
doing it. Yeah.
Can pull out. Yeah. And I even substitute teaching. I prefer working from home, but if I need to, in the interim, they do have an online program here, so I could even substitute online. So yeah. All right. Well, when you have people who hear that you work from home, say, hey, how do I do that? What advice would you give someone who's thinking about working from home for the first time or wonders how you make it all work?
Take aspirin.
What?
My back hurts when I work from home, to be honest. And I need to dance more. And when I'm sitting for doing the online teaching, I find it to be frustrating without aspirin. So that helped me.
Interesting. So have you ever had like an ergonomic assessment to like help you look at your desk and set up and think about how you could be sitting differently to be more comfortable?
No, I'm sure that would be very fruitful.
Something I can give you some names.
Oh, okay,
I've known a few
cool.
people, yeah, who are great, and they do virtual
Oh,
assessments.
virtual. That's
They'll have you
cool.
take pictures of your workspace from different angles, and then they'll have you have someone else take pictures of you, sitting in your workspace in different ways, and look at your chair and the heights. You have to do a lot of measurements of yourself and your space. How far is your body from this, that, and the other thing.
Sure.
But some people will actually come, I don't know with the pandemic how that has affected things, but off in office spaces, they'll do the assessment in person. And I think some
Sure.
of them will do that virtually too. So that they can see you in real life, in real time, or, virtually in real time,
Mhm.
adjusting yourself. And then does that look better? Because in the past, they would just take a picture and then they'd send it, you send it off. And then like they'd give you a report 3 weeks later saying, oh, you needed to change this one thing. And then you take another picture and you send it back. Is very inefficient. So I think that things have come a long way in that area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can talk with you if you want a little bit about some of the things I feel like I've learned a lot over the years, because I've also struggled with a lot of back issues and
Back
things like that.
issues. Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
were a dancer in a past life?
Yes, I was a dancer, an Irish dancer.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, little river dance type dancing.
Yes,
So,
my
yeah.
sister learned and performed sometimes
Oh, really?
yeah,
What's
some of the Irish jig type stuff. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
It's pretty high
It,
impact and
it's
intense. Do
extremely
you
high impact. Did she ever compete?
It wasn't competitive. It was more just like a local thing that she would do for, friends and family. And um I don't know if it was like a family fun night or maybe like a local event, like in the community, like 4th of July or something
Oh,
like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but um, fun and hard, I think.
it's really hard. Yeah, it's really precise and
Do you have like a
technical.
stretching routine or anything else that you're doing? Because it sounds like you do have a lot of computer work.
Um, I do go sometimes to ballet and sometimes I do belly dance, but to be honest, I'm gonna go see the pain specialist
Okay, yeah.
and get a nerve ablation,
Oh
but
my goodness.
I really only have one vertebrae that's problematic.
Hmm.
And I think if I got a nerve ablation, then that might help with the sitting.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it sounds serious. Do you
No, it's not this, it's like a 6.
but still.
Yeah.
Do you ever stand up? Does that help?
No, I never teach standing up. I just don't have the setup to do it.
Yeah.
I've heard that people like it, but I also think that I might like go
Mhm.
in the middle of the night, and
I
just sort of
think that
want to.
just being able to have the option is nice to stand up or sit down. Like I usually sit, but if I was really tired, I'd stand.
Oh, how do you just change the angle of the camera?
I have an adjustable keyboard tray that I can lift up really high, and then I would
Oh,
just stick a box under my monitor to
wow.
lift it up, and then I would end up angling it just a little bit. Like normally my camera is coming down a little bit towards
Mhm,
me,
mhm.
and when I stand up, it was a little bit more straight on or maybe slightly tilted, but not too obvious.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
Yeah, just consider moving around.
Yes, yes, yes.
But
There's
yeah, I'll
one VIPKID where they do stretching, and I really like that particular one because I'm like stretch.
mhm.
Ah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. And then I started to just try to do the stretches in between classes or to
mm,
incorporate it into my greetings, especially when I was in
yes.
pain. Yeah. Yeah. It helps a lot. Well, Elizabeth, I think we need to wrap it up.
Mhm.
It's been a nice chat. I have learned a lot of things about grants that I didn't know about. And
I
I
would
wish
say
you
the
the
main thing about grants is if you're actually in an organization, try. Sorry to
okay.
cut you off.
No. So say it one more time.
if you're actually in an organization, nothing can hurt you by trying.
Okay. And certainly there's lots of places to find grants. It's just a part of the world that I am not really familiar with. I have friends who are teachers who have written the small grants that you talked about. But I don't know if I have any other friends who are grant writers. And I apologize if you are my friend who writes grants and I forgot. All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck as you're transitioning. I know, thankfully, you didn't have every single egg in one basket, right?
Yes, you
I
gotta
really do
diversify.
feel, I really
Yeah,
feel for some of the people that had everything into one thing. You know,
yes,
single mom kind of
yes.
situation.
Working
But
like
yeah,
50 hours VIP kid, you know,
yeah, it's all
all
coming
nighters
down.
every night, you
I do
know.
appreciate that it didn't end up just shutting the doors immediately in August. Like some of them, I think like August 9th or something
Yeah.
like that. Like 2 or 3 of the big companies closed and we
Mhm.
were kind of trickling out. So it's not like
Mhm.
we didn't know. The writing has been on the wall for some time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts?
Um, pursue your passion. That's my final thought.
Okay. Pursue your passion. I like that. And you have, it sounds like.
I think so. Yeah, I have a lot of support, but especially from my mom, but I like that's my passions and my missions.
Well, thank you for agreeing to this interview. I think we were in a VIPKID group together and you agreed to come on in. So I think I will probably maybe interview a few other people who are leaving the ESL world or who are maybe continuing on. We'll see. But it's interesting to see how many different directions we're all going to go. Like when I left my
Yes.
Mayo Clinic job, you know, I was part of another company that, or not company, the department that basically kind of came to an end with transcription and the very different paths that many people took as they started to like look for new things. So, well, this has been Elizabeth Venable with April Malone and Yes, I Work From Home, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
No problem.